Good morning, everyone, and thank you again for your patience. And thank you as well for joining us here today as we join Canadians all across the country in commemorating the National Day of Mourning. On this day, we gather together to honor the lives lost and the lives forever changed due to workplace injury, illness, or unsafe conditions. Your presence here helps shine a light on the importance of health and safety in the workplace, and it is a part of our shared effort to prevent further tragedy. My name is Amelia D'Amato, and I am the curator of the Elliot Lake Museum, which oversees the Miners Memorial Park. It is an honor to help care for the park, which is a place of remembrance, reflection, and deep meaning to so many in our community. The weather has unfortunately prevented us from gathering at the memorial today, but I can say with certainty that the rain has not dampened our spirits or our resolve towards advocating for safer workplaces and conditions for all. This year, we have 11 new names added to the memorial walls. The first year, I had the opportunity to take part in the Day of Mourning. There were 4 names going up. The next year, there were 5, and then the year after that, there was 4 again. Last year, we saw an unprecedented 12 names added, and this year we have another 11. This surge of new additions speaks to the growing recognition of occupational illnesses and the long fight for justice by the affected families. It is proof that our advocacy for workers' rights and compensation is successful, and it does make a difference. The names we add today are not just names, they are stories, families, and legacies. They remind us why we must never take workplace safety for granted and why we must continue the fight for safer conditions, accountability, and care for those who have been harmed. Thank you once again for standing with us today in remembrance and in commitment. We will now begin our ceremony with a poetry dedication. This poet will be familiar to many of you here today and would have been well known amongst many of the names on our memorial walls, as they would have called her a coworker and a friend. Our poet worked as a miner for Denison Mines from 1980 to 1992, working up the ranks and becoming the first female boom truck operator for the company. Inspiration for this piece arose from lunchroom conversations with her fellow miners as they mused about the future and automation in the workplace. Please join me in welcoming Linda Elliot to the podium to share a reading of her new original poem titled Hard-Working Miner.
Thank you so much, Amelia, for that introduction. I wasn't expecting that much. Anyways, I've worked in the mines with the guys. We played jokes on each other. We had fun. We argued about a lot of things. And some of the things that I've written about in this today is things that we were looking forward into the future, because automation was starting way back then. So, hardworking miners. Hardworking miners is what we were. And family and friends still today are hardworking miners. Now with AI taking over, where will the miners of today be? Will this happen sooner in 10 years? Is our fears as we rest? Our hearts and eyes still watch you all with deep fear, our children and grandchildren, and for some of us, great-grandchildren. Where will AI take them? With tears in eyes, we watch and wait. Now they rely on cell phones, which are great, as long as they are used as a connective tool, not as a lifeline to what? We now have tablets, computers to which we tap into and shop. You order clothes, furniture, toys, and many other things and get them delivered to your doors. Wow. Never knowing how they feel or what materials they're made of. Some clothes don't even have labels on them, or so what size? What did we do with them when we wash them? Gone is the thrill of taking children to the store and watching in wonder as they touch with care and feel the objects of their choice. Skipping dishes used to be taking our family to a dinner at a local restaurant. Even Ronald McDonald's was fun. Now it comes to the door and we set it up. We help ourselves eat wherever, not at a table together as a family. Asking about each other's days, laughing and talking, all of this is gone. And at what cost, as businesses are lost? Education is online, right or wrong, with little or no proper help. Us older miners folks wonder, where is the world going? Where is the hard life us hardworking miners worked so hard for? Is it gone? Where and why? Is this progress as machines do the work? Who will pay the hardworking miners? Where will they be? Where does this leave our families? It is with pride that I wrote this, as these are the kinds of things as we as friends and co-workers talked about and argued about the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda, for sharing that. So we will now welcome our first speakers. Our first speakers will share a few words on behalf of our MPP for Algoma Manitoulin, Bill Rosenberg, who could not be here in person today. Please join me in welcoming his constituency assistants, Maria Trudeau and Mary Kay Carhy.
Reach that? Good morning, everyone. Today we gather to observe the National Day of Mourning, a day dedicated to remembering workers who have lost their lives, been injured, or suffered illness due to workplace incidents. It is a solemn reminder that every job should be a place of safety, dignity, and respect. Behind every statistic is a person, a parent, a family member, a friend, a colleague, whose absence is deeply felt by those who knew and loved them.
This day is not only about reflection, but also about responsibility. It calls on all of us, employers, workers, and communities, to commit to safer practices, stronger protections, and a culture where no one is put at unnecessary risk. Let us honor those we have lost by striving to prevent future tragedies. Their memory should guide our actions, reminding us that workplace safety is not optional, it is essential. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker needs no introduction, but please humor me anyways. The families of this year's inductees already know her well, largely through her involvement in the McIntyre Powder Project, a powerful initiative that has made significant strides in gaining long-deserved recognition and compensation for occupational disease and illness. The result from this project has been life-changing for the affected workers and their families, a significant amount of former Elliot Lake uranium miners included in this group. Her continued advocacy, the growth of her McIntyre Powder Project, and her work through the Occupational Health Clinics for Ontario Workers has directly contributed to many of the names we've had the honour of adding to our memorial walls in recent years, including each of the 11 names we will be inducting today. Please join me in warmly welcoming Janice Martel to the podium.
Just gonna wait while Amelia gets the PowerPoint going. Thank you. I'm not sure with the speaker here if it's going to interfere with the people over there being able to see. Speak up, we're all family, it's all good. So I wrote this in the biggest font that I could and still put it on a reasonable amount of pages, so I wouldn't have to wear my glasses, but I think I have to cave and wear them. You're good?
Yeah, we're just trying to make the speaker, but we don't want it to.
Oh, do you want me to turn this off then? Try moving? If it goes back?
Okay, so we'll move it back and then you can.
Don't make me do technology. It's a button. Is that better?
Yes, we just don't
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Can everyone hear? Now, keep in mind when I wrote this, I thought that we were at the memorial, so when I'm talking about the wall back here and all of that stuff. But I did come out yesterday, my husband and I decided to come yesterday to be able to take some pictures because I know when it rains, it's difficult sometimes to see the names. So I printed off those pictures. I hope that was okay with the families because I had to make a game time decision. And we came up and I have pictures of every person's name with the picture next to it. I got pictures of the group at the memorial wall. So if you're on Facebook, I have a McIntyre Powder Project Facebook page. I posted a bunch of them there yesterday and I'll post some more. But I can certainly send it to Amelia and she can send them out to the families. So that's good. It's always a mix of feelings for me when I come here to this beautiful place of remembrance at the memorial wall that stands as a testament to the lives lived and the lives lost. There is an ache for those who are no longer sitting among us, a longing to hear their voices, see their faces, feel the grip of their hand, or the warmth of their hug, just one more time. There is pride for how hard they worked and how well they are remembered by their families, their coworkers, their friends, and community. The hardest feeling to reconcile is how it feels to have the name of someone you knew, someone you loved, be added to that wall. Some of them didn't survive their workday. Their deaths came decades ago, some as young men who never got to see their children grow up. Totally forgot about the PowerPoint. I just thought I'd bring some of these pictures that I have of the wall. And I have to say that was when the fourth column was erected. And I'm so proud of the city of Elliot Lake and Amelia and Darla before her, who have fought so hard to make this beautiful place of remembrance. And when we filled up the names on the wall, they added another column, and I think that that's amazing. For multitudes of others, many more than these granite columns could ever hold, their deaths came over time. From the dust and fumes and radiation and toxicity of the crushers, mills, tailings, stopes, raises, and drifts. How do you reconcile that the reason that you have the life that you have is the same reason that their name goes on that wall? It's a tough go. What helps me when I'm struggling with those thoughts and feelings is the Elliot Lake Miners Memorial. Being able to go there, see the names on the wall. Their names line these walkways, those who are living mixed with those who are gone, where we honor, gather, and remember. This place reminds us that they lived, and that's why I wanted their photographs out there. Some of them built their lives here in Elliot Lake, and others traveled here from communities along Highway 17, Massey, Walford, Spanish, Cutler, Sprague, Pronto, Algoma Mills, Blind River, Iron Bridge, and more. And every one of them drove the 108 to and from the mine sites every workday to do their shift. And I know that there are mine workers here who worked in those mines, who drove that Highway 108. And I'd just like to take a moment, if you're here, could you please stand and just be recognized by your community members? And if you're not able to stand, raise a hand, or if you're already standing, raise a hand. I think it speaks volumes that you come here to honor these guys. This year is hitting me harder than most because I have interacted on some level with every one of the 11 miners or their family members who are being inducted onto the wall today. And some of you have been alongside me since I started my McIntyre Powder Project work in 2015. To the families of Hector, Stan, Bob, Tom, Gary, Fern, Gerard, Gaetan, and the three Jims, Dennis Jim Abramson, James Jim Coughlin, and Gaston, who has a whole story about his Jim, Sekan. It is deeply meaningful to me that you have this acknowledgement for your men. I know I'm not family, but these guys meant something to me. The ones that I was lucky enough to meet, and the ones that I've only known through your eyes. Again, forgetting. Fern. I very much appreciate all of the support and encouragement that you've given me over the years for my McIntyre Powder Project work. As Marc Laurage, the son of Fern Laurage, pointed out to me recently, even though the reason that we gather here today is sad, it is also a testament of the importance of continuing this work. So Fern, I didn't actually get to meet in person, but I got to meet his family today. We've spoken many times on the phone. And when I was speaking with his wife Claire, mostly on the phone, because he had a hard time with his breathing, you could hear him coughing and gasping for breath in the background. And that happens with a lot of the guys, or they can't be on the phone with me because they have noise-induced hearing loss. So they, their wives or partners or speak with me. And a lot of them you can hear. the difficulties with breathing and the stuff that happens when you are in an environment all day, with breathing in rock dust, breathing in blasting fumes, breathing in diesel exhaust. And I was very happy, Claire, for you and your family that you got this answer and that you got some help and support for all that you went through and all that your family went through. Gatin Belil, is Rena here? Belanger? Okay. I haven't gotten to meet your family yet, but Rena had contacted me, and that's how I got to know about Gaetan. I've never met him, but found this picture, and I hope that you're okay that I brought that here today. I wanted to put face and form to the people that we have names for, so I hope that that was okay with you. And I really, these days, I find it's a big whirlwind. I want to meet a lot of the families. I know your names, and sometimes when we're all together, I get a little overwhelmed and forget people's names. So I would love to get some pictures of the families when they call up your names. You're welcome to pick up your loved one's photo at the back and bring it up with you. James Coughlin, again, never met him. Is Barbara here? Oh, she wasn't able to come. Betty? Oh, she is. Hi, Barbara. We've spoken a few times on the phone, but I didn't get a chance to meet you yet. And your daughter Betty gave us this, loaned me a picture that I could print out for him. Looks, I'm gonna guess, a wedding in the 80s, because that color of pink was pretty big. My first marriage, that was my my color. Anyways, I know you've been fighting for a long time. He died in 2012, I believe, and I'm really, really, really happy for you and your family that you have this answer and acknowledgement. Hector Bouchard, I spoke to on the phone. He was an Elliot Lake miner probably early on in his career, and then he moved out to the Red Lake mines, and I believe they were living in Winnipeg when I was speaking with them. I spoke with him, and then we lost him, and then I spoke with his wife, and then we lost her, and I spoke with his son Dwight, who's out west and wasn't able to make it here today, and was hoping that one of the family members could come. And I don't know if anyone's here, but I'm happy to hold that picture, or if anybody worked with them, you can come and hold that picture for them. Gerard Gadet and family. Another one, I think, was 2012 that we lost him, and their family fought for a lot of years. They're back there. I only got to know Gerard through his family, through his wife Lorette and his son Luke, who goes by Gus. Gus was when Kate Rutherford from CBC Radio broke the story about the McIntyre Powder Project back on April 14th, 2015. That same day, I heard from Gus, and he said my dad was one of these guys. He also had Parkinson's, like my dad, and he was the number 5 on my volunteer registry. I started out with my dad's name, and then Don Harrison, Tom Jeffrey, people that have been in this community for a long time joined, and they're public about that, so I can say that. Otherwise, it's confidential. I don't throw names around. But Gus stood up, and he came to the intake clinics on behalf of his dad, because that's sometimes all you can do is just be there and show up. And he came to the intake clinics that OCAL, the Occupational Health Clinics for Interior Workers, who I work for, they held in 2016 in conjunction with the USW, and he showed up and people came in to contribute their stories. People who weren't sick came to contribute their stories, to stand up for the ones who didn't, so that we would understand what they were exposed to underground. It was really, really helpful. And he also came to the McIntyre Powder Apology on November 30th. November 30th, 1943 was the first documented use of McIntyre powder at McIntyre Mine, where it was invented in Schumacher, Ontario, Timmins. So on the 79th anniversary, we went down to the Legislative Assembly of Ontario, and they apologized. And I have that on my McIntyre Powder Project YouTube page. They haven't come after me yet, because I don't think you're supposed to tape it off the TV, but I did, because they put it on after the actual, they didn't televise it. Unlike the rest of their proceedings, they put it at 3 o'clock or whenever they stop their, so it's there if you want to watch it. It was meaningful to us, and he's over on this side. There was 31 of us, I think, that came down on the bus and went there. And I just thank you for being there. It's helpful. Jim Abramson, he's on the wall as Dennis, which is his first name, but he's always gone by Jim, and people will know him as Jim. I got to meet him, I think around September, October. He discovered this on Facebook, and he started messaging me, and just saying he was one of the exposed minors, and was having a bit of problems with his lungs. And I went to Yvette and Jim's home in Wanapitei, and the picture on the right is the day that I went there, and I took notes, and he gave me his experiences with I think he was up at Curratison first and got McIntyre powder up there and got that in the mine dry up there, and then he came down to Quirk 2 and got it in the big long tunnel hall building there where they specifically had it for the miners there. And there's him underground looking pretty, I got kids here so I won't say bad A, but bad A, looking pretty cool. Again, I find the pictures of the miners at the monument really a really good reminder that they lived and that they were here, and those who lived long enough to see that memorial wall built, it means something to us. I see so many people going down there having coffee, looking at the lake, and just contemplating and looking at the bricks of people alive or deceased who have bought a brick. I bought one for my dad, and I have a picture of him there, and it really means a lot to me. And that's his crew. He is 4th from the, I'm not good with my lefts and right lefts. I believe that's him back there, right? I think I got him. And here's some pictures. His family shared quite a few pictures, and here's a compilation of some of the pictures. His daughters are there, and Yvette and Stan. There's another picture. I never got to meet Stan. Diane called me, I think the last 3 weeks of his life is when she first contacted. He got sick and went so quickly, and it was very traumatic for the family. And I'm very glad that Diane shared this picture with me. Every year on the November 30th anniversary for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been collecting photos of it just has to be a McIntyre powder exposed worker. And I have a slideshow that just runs. It's silent, there's no music. I don't know how to do that. I need a grandkid or something to show me how and not get sued or whatever. But I just play it every year on November 30th. I just want people to remember these guys, and some of the ones who were alive when their pictures went on there are now gone or sick. And Stan's is one of the ones that's on there. It also came on the banners that we brought down to Queen's Park and at the 80th anniversary as well. So the guy with his head down there, Gaston, to my, oh my God, I'm so bad at this. This is my right. It's an affliction in the Hobbs family. Gaston Jim Sagan, in November of 2015, I went up to Timmins. It was the first time I went. The Pamela mine workers had a recreational committee, and every year they meet at a dive bar, and they pick, there's been a couple, and they just gather around. They used to have a Christmas party every year. They had a recreation committee, and they thought, no, we're gonna keep doing this, and they've been doing it since the Pamela mine closed in 1999. So I've crashed that party every year since 2015. It's great. The guys didn't know who I was at first, but they love me now. And I missed this year because it was an ice storm, and that was the first time in 10 years, other than the pandemic years, that we were locked down. But the day before I went I was an OPSU member at that time, and they let me use their hall and just said, hey, I'm doing this project, and if you want to show up, show up. And he came there. And he told me a story. So he started he started working at 15 years old, piling lumber for a lumber company before he ended up in the mines. And at 15, he said he was working with a German crew, and they couldn't pronounce Gaston. So they just looked at him and they called him Jim. And that was it. From like age 15, he was like, Jim, I'm just Jim. So he's on the wall as Gaston, but now you know his, the secret of Jim. And these were 5 Timmins area workers. The 2 on the left of me were brothers. 4 of the 5 of them are gone since that was, and it really underscores how important it is to do this work and to help them while they're alive, and to gather. I know my dad was a miner. I'm pretty good now at telling you what he was probably exposed to, but at the time, if you asked me, if he couldn't answer for himself, I wouldn't be able to tell you that. So it's important. A lot of people at OCAL, they register sometimes even if they don't have health issues with one of these groups, just to be able to document that for future, if you need it in the future or to help the next guy. We've got a bunch of Kid Creek met site workers that were going up and helping this year, and as one guy put it, it was a death hole. The amount of exposures that they had there, and it, some of the widows contact me, and I'm able to go into somebody else's file and say, okay, you also worked as a zinc stripper and a cell house operator and stuff, and I could tell you what you were exposed to because that guy was alive and he told me. So it's helpful to do that. And there he is, operating and just in daily life. The reason that this picture is in front of you, it belonged to Bob Olmsted, and his family just donated it to me. So if anyone kicks it over, we're gonna have trouble. But Claire DeMuck, I think you said hadn't had that, and I just sometimes don't feel worthy, but I really appreciate that, and it will have a place of honor in my home. Bob was my dad's cross shift partner. They worked really, really well together. About a month and a half, 2 months before he died, he called me up, and the way he was talking, it wasn't usual for him to call me up, but he called me up, and the way he was talking, I thought, he's saying goodbye to me. And he's just such a nice man. He's just such a nice man. He was gentle and kind and funny, and it's really difficult to see him go. He, like us and so many others of you, he came to the intake clinics to support the work of the McIntyre Powder Project, and he got to see Dad. And Dad wasn't in great shape then. That was about 7 months before he died. We had a wheelchair arranged for him, but he was having none of that. He was going to stand up and walk with his mining brothers. And Bob came over, and it just lit Dad up. There's no other way he would have ever seen him again. He came down to Queen's Park. These are the banners. It's hard to read there, but it says, "Our hearts travel with you." I collected a bunch of photos from mine workers who had been affected by McIntyre Powder but weren't going to be there in person for the apology. So we brought them down, and Jamie West snuck them in for us because you're not allowed to bring anything like that in there. So I probably shouldn't say that out loud, but he did. And because he's the one that really pushed for the apology, but it was, I give props to former Minister of Labour, Monty McNaughton, for apologizing, and his staff for working on that. Roger Janot is here, and he's in that picture. He's right by 1, 2, 3 over from the right of the screen. I gotta stop doing this. And Bob showed up at the 80th anniversary 1 year later. I held an event in Sudbury at the Steelworkers Hall. And he showed up there, and it's online, so I can tell you what he said. Because I invited them, if you were exposed to McIntyre Powder, to come up. And then passed the microphone if anyone wanted to say anything, and Bob said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, I'm here today, I have lung cancer, I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow, but I'm here today. And they interviewed a couple of people for, their CTV was there and CBC, and they were interviewing a miner's daughter and him, and as they were doing the interview, because they were both Francophone, and it was for CBC, Francophone radio, she realized, she worked at the treatment center, the cancer treatment center, and she realized he was one of the patients that she mixed chemo for. And she said she watched the slideshow come out, and it was like name after name after name after name that she worked that had lung cancer or some sort of cancer that she was mixing chemo for. Gary Gravel, is his family, were they able to make it here today? No. Gary and his wife Carol, I met in September of, sorry, is this too long? You're okay? I met them in September of 2019. At the time, they were both dying. Carol worked in the crusher house here in one of the mills. I don't know if it was Nordic or, and she said I was 95 pounds at the time. So when something got stuck in the crusher, my coworkers would hold me by my ankles and suspend me over, and I would poke at it until it. And that wasn't uncommon. It might have been uncommon for people who weren't 95 pounds, but and she had a real joy and a light about her. And I think I don't have a picture of her, but I think the month after I went there, she died. And Gary agreed to be interviewed by me. It was bothering me that so many of the guys were dying, and I just wanted to capture their stories. So I went and bought a bunch of documentary film equipment. I had no idea what I was doing. I had to figure it out, and he was the first person that I interviewed. And it was February 1st, I believe, of 2020. It was the month before we got locked down, so that was not helpful. But he just told it like it was, what it was like underground, and his family and Bob Olmsted's family graciously agreed to be part of a book that I just wrote. So little bits of their stories are in there. And when I listen to the playback of the video that I took of him, for a split second before it comes on the screen, you can hear him gasping, and it's just, oh. And yeah, that was us the day I filmed in his home. In August, the August long weekend, I think it was the Sunday of the August long weekend of 2024, Alibi Entertainment came up to do filming for a TV Ontario program called Crossroads, Beyond Boom and Bust. And every episode is on a different community, and they did one on Elliot Lake. If you haven't watched it, it's on YouTube. They did a really good job. They're about just under an hour long. And someone, I think it was Carol Hughes, told them about me and my work. So they interviewed me, and they wanted to interview me here. And I said, well, come and film my guys. Like, come and film their widows. Come and, I want them there. So I thought, who am I going to get in the August long weekend? So I called a few people, and many of them showed up. And I was really appreciative that they did. They also interviewed Roger Janot at my home in Sudbury for that episode as well. Elaine and John Miller are here. They were there. I think Diane came out. There was quite a few people who came out. Florence, and I wasn't sure whether to call Tom Latondras because he had contacted me years ago, early on, and then he kind of shied away because he's a very private man and very doesn't want to bother anyone, doesn't want to be doesn't want to be a problem. And I know he was friends with Norm St. George. I'm not sure if Norm is here. I don't think I've seen him yet. Norm? No. He was going to try and make it out today if he could. Anyway, I called Tom, and he said, well, if Norm will go, I'll go. And called Norm, and Tom's going, I'll go. And when we finished the filming, everyone was just kind of scattering and about to leave, and Tom and Norm were about to go around the end of that last column, I said, Tom, Norm, I don't have a picture of you. Can I take a picture of you? They said, yeah. I said, where do you want it? I said, well, right here's fine. So Tom, without missing a beat, says, before and after picture. And he starts chuckling. And I said, Tom. But there he is. His name's on that wall. That really hit me. Haha, you didn't know it was going to go up. I really want to thank you for what Amelia and Darla before her and the city of Elliot Lake and everybody, the steelworkers who started that monument. I have 720 mine workers on my McIntyre Powder Project voluntary registry, and it's still ongoing. 400 of them are deceased, but 125 who were alive when they registered have died since. And that really underscores how important this is. There's a lot happening in the next year for me, project. I spent the last, the TV Ontario aired on July 4th, 2025, so it was about a year later. And the day after, I got contacted by the board chair of Dundurn Press, which is a Canadian publishing company. He said, do you want to write a book? This is important. And I said, yes. And I spent 5 months, and I have no idea how I did it, but I got it done, and I'm very grateful to my work for allowing me to use my vacation time and borrow some time to write it. But it's called Dusted, the Men of the McIntyre Powder Experiment. There's people from Elliot Lake. There's a chapter on Elliot Lake. There's a chapter on Timmins. I focused on the 4 main mining districts in Ontario that used it, even though it was used worldwide. So Timmins, the Kirkland Lake, Virginiatown area, Elliot Lake, and Red Lake. It lifted something off of me to be able to put in writing what you went through. It focuses on 1 miner from each mining district, but then there's about a dozen stories of other mine workers that are in there. I had made the decision a few months before the book was even a thing, so I'm not retiring because of the book, but I'm going to be retiring from OCal, from my paid job, in February of 2027. The book is going to come out in April of 2027. The two are not related. There's such gaps in the system, and I have people calling me who are not miners. There's no WSAB office in Northern Ontario. You cannot go to a physical building and get help to make a claim. That's bullshit. You guys were exposed to a lot of stuff. They closed the Sudbury office, they closed the Timmins, they closed the North Bay one, they closed the Thunder Bay one. There's nowhere that you can go to get help. You can go to the Office of the Worker Advisor. Potentially, they just allowed them to kind of help with the Form 6s, but usually you go there after your claim is denied. People need help to fill out those forms. And it's getting a lot, and I decided I needed time and money are my 2 big things, so I put my earnings and stuff towards my work. But I've decided that I needed to create a little bit more time in my life and some balance. So I'll still be doing my McIntyre Powder Project work until I die, or lose my mind, which could come first, we don't know. So the 1-800 number that people have been using to reach me, that has been gratefully shared with me for the last 11 years from OCal, that's going to be going. So I took my old iPhone and made a separate phone line, so my new business cards are back there. I also started a sarcoidosis voluntary registry all across Ontario for any workers, because there's at least 12, if not like up to 15 of the guys who have sarcoidosis. It's a very rare granulomatous lung disease, which means that your immune cells in your body clump up and form lumps called granulomas, and all of their claims are being denied. So I thought, screw you guys, and the people who were representing them closed their files. They didn't go with the appeal, even though they had. And I got mad, so I thought, no, I'm opening this up to all of Ontario, and we're going to find out who else has sarcoidosis, and if you have sarcoidosis, what are you exposed to? So with McIntyre powder, you have one common exposure and a whole lot of outcomes. different health issues. This time we've got one health issue, and we're gonna try and figure out what the exposures are. So if you know somebody who worked in Ontario, wherever they work, nail salon, wherever, they can contact me, and we're gonna start that up. So, thank you very much for I come here every year because, and I can tell you, other mining communities, families are jealous that we recognize occupational diseases, because it makes, there's so many more that died of occupational disease, and I think it's really, really important to mark them, and thank you for coming out.
Thank you so much, Janice, and thank you for sharing those memories on behalf of the families. I know, especially those who couldn't make it today, it's really appreciated. I would now like to invite our mayor, Andrew Wannen, to the podium to formally induct this year's fallen workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. Thank you all for coming today. The importance of today, each year that I've come, it gets stronger. You look out at the people that are here, the men who came to Elliot Lake to work in order to build a family, which builds our community. And the strength out here, shown by everybody that's spoken, is just tremendous, and is the most important part of our community. I'm glad we pivoted to this venue. These hallowed halls, if any of these inductees spent any time in Elliot Lake, pretty sure they had a pretty good time here once in a while. But we are here to honor the names that are going on the wall. So I will thank everybody that's put together today, Amelia and Carolyn Klug, our members of our fire department who are here, our honor guard, Miss Alex for the poetry, and of course Janice. Her important work is what we are celebrating. The Day of Mourning is for, advocacy for improvement in the workplace. And I think she's done a tremendous job. The years that I've been here, I agree. It's gone from 3, 5, last year was 12, and this year's 11. And it's a tremendous number. There's a lot of battles that go on, and it's taken many years for these folks to be recognized. And it's a testament to Janice's work. I'm sort of happy she's retiring, but man, she was a bulldog. And I'd like to thank MPP Rosenberg for sending representatives to speak today. That is always important too. But let's get to the point. Because it's a venue change, we are going to change up the way things are going to work. I will go through each name. I'll ask somebody or the family to come up and receive a flower. And at that time, if you wish to say a few words, we will do it at that time instead of afterwards. Okay? So it is my great honor to start with honoring and paying respects to the families of each of the following inductees to our memorial wall. First, Dennis Abramson.
I didn't think it'd be the first one coming up. So brought Dad with me here today. So I just have a little write-up I'd like to share. So, good morning. My family and I are gathered here today to remember and honor our beloved Jim Abramson. He was a loving husband, father, and grandfather whose life and legacy continue to live on in all of us. My dad began his mining career in 1962 at just 18 years old. Like so many men in his generation, he worked hard without complaint to provide for his family. He came to Elliot Lake in 1970, where he held several underground positions with Rio Album. He remained there until the mine closed in 1996. He took great pride in his work and in his strong work ethic. Providing for his family was always his priority. And when time allowed, he found peace in the forests and lakes around Elliot Lake. He was an avid fisherman and hunter. These simple joys brought him so much happiness and left us with treasured memories we still carry today. As a child, it was a familiar and comforting sight to see my father grab his metal lunchbox and head off to the mine, just like so many other fathers did. At the time, none of us could have imagined that the very work that supported our families would one day take them from us far too soon. For many miners and their families, the hardship did not end with illness or loss. Those who suffered workplace injuries or occupational diseases were often left to fight lengthy, painful battles with government agencies simply to receive the compensation they deserved. In some cases, those battles continued even after lives were lost. This was true for my father. The journey was long and difficult, but we were not alone. We were fortunate to have support along the way, most notably from Janice Martel, whose fierce advocacy meant more to our family than words can express. We will always be grateful to her. Today is the day of mourning, but it is also a day of meaning. While nothing can undo the loss of my father, the recognition of his sacrifice matters. Although his life was taken by workplace illness, the process he began to prove that his condition was caused by the exposures he endured has finally brought justice. Having his name added to this monument gives our family a sense of acknowledgement and closure. It's been 10 years since my dad passed, and he is still deeply missed. Today we honor his memory, his work, his life, and we ensure that he and others like him will never be forgotten. Thank you.
Our next inductee, Gaetan Belil.
Hi, my name is Joan Belil. Gaetan Belil is my husband. He was known to his friends as Gator. And, today has a lot of meaning for me. It was 3 years ago this day that Gaetan passed away. It's a little more harder for me. I just wanted to say a little bit about him so you'll know. He worked at Denison Mines from 1970s up until the closure. He was very dedicated and loyal employee, and he really did love his job working underground. Not a lot of people probably could say that, but he really, really enjoyed working underground. Not knowing, I guess, what nasty things he was exposed to, though. He volunteered for the Big D Children's Committee. They would organize events, teen dances and picnics, and he would play Santa Claus at their Christmas party. He often told me a lot of stories about underground working. He and his co-workers were doing pranks and jokes, and he really did, like I said, he really did like his work. That's about it. I would like to thank Rick Hamilton for all of his help, and thank everybody for Gaetan being honored here today. And thank you. This is my brother-in-law.
I'd like to shine a bit of extra light on Gaetan Belil. So today we gather not only to honor the miners who built the history of Elliot Lake, but to honor one man whose spirit, kindness, and work ethic left a mark far deeper than the mines. I'm speaking about my brother-in-law, my wife's older brother, a man with a heart of gold, a quick laugh, a generosity that seemed to have no bottom. He was 76 when he left us, but he lived those years with a fullness and warmth that many never reach. He was the kind man who didn't just work in the mines, he carried the values of that life with him everywhere he went. Though when he needed to be steady, when others leaned on him, and always ready to help anyone who needed a hand, if something needed fixing, he'd show up. If someone needed support, he'd be there before they even asked. That was just who he was. But he wasn't only defined by hard work, he loved life. Really loved it. Music, camping, parties, good food, family, skits. He embraced all of it. He could turn an ordinary day into a memory. He could turn a gathering into the best of celebration. And he could turn strangers into friends with nothing more than a joke, a smile, or a story told in that way only he could. And of course, he had a soft spot for animals. Pets weren't just pets to him. They were family. They felt safe with him. And honestly, so did people. What I admire most of was how naturally he gave of himself. He didn't do it for recognition. He didn't do it for praise. He did it because helping others was simply part of his nature. If he could make someone's day easier, brighter, or lighter, he would. No hesitation. So today, as he's recognized for his work in the Elliot Lake mines, it feels fitting because mining is about more than digging rock. It's about courage, endurance, loyalty, and trust. And those qualities defined him long after he left the mine's shafts behind. He was a good man, a funny man, a man who loved deeply and lived fully. And though we miss him every day, we carry him with us in our stories, in our laughter, in the music he loved, in the meals shared around a table, in every act of kindness we pass forward in his name. So on behalf of our family, thank you for honoring him today. He would have been proud.
He would have been just as proud as you are for him to have been there.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thanks. Excuse me. Our next inductee is Hector Bouchard. Okay. Do you want to come up on behalf of Hector's family? Janice? Thank you.
I've already sent some stuff.
Yep, that's fine.
For Hector.
Our next inductee is Mr. James Coughlin.
Good morning, everybody. Now I can see why these guys turn all red looking. My father was a miner. He was a good miner, and he started out at CM, went from CM to Stanley Mines. Then from Stanley Mines, he went to Rio. Growing up, I seen like there was so many people in the 80s dying. I believe it was almost every week there would be somebody getting killed in the mines. It was quite the thing. Dangerous job for sure. That's, you know, and he passed away with brain cancer. And yeah. Here's to you people and your families, and thank you very much.
Our next inductee is Gerard Godet. Okay, and the next inductee, Gary Gravel. Sorry, Janice.
Feels like I'm honoring
Yes,
myself.
you
Yeah,
are
yeah.
honoring them. And the next inductee is Stanley Kanafa.
Stan was a wonderful and caring husband, father, and grandfather. He worked in the mines for over 30 years. He was an avid outdoorsman and loved living in Elliot Lake. Yeah, okay. With his name on the Miners Memorial, his memory will always be part of this community.
And next, I'll call Thomas Latendresse.
I don't know if
You don't have to say nothing. Okay?
Next inductee is Fernand Laranger.
Morning, everyone. If I can indulge everybody for a few minutes. My name's Jerry Laranger. I'm Fern's youngest brother. I also worked in the mines for a number of years, and I was involved in the Steelworkers Union. And there's some history, I think, that gives context to everything we're doing here today. Because being involved in the union way back then, I was, there was a lot of things that happened that led to what we're doing here today. Let me just say the first thing is like April 28th. Why couldn't they have done this in June or July? The significance of that date is that at one point in time, if a worker was injured or died and the family wanted to be compensated, they had to sue their employer, bring them to court. However, on April 28, 1914, the provincial government enacted the Workers' Compensation Act, which the workers gave up their right to sue their employers in order to have the provincial government adjudicate claims and order compensation from the companies. So that's where April 28th comes from. April 28th, the National Day of Mourning, was initiated, or the whole brainchild of that was a steelworker idea. However, it was adopted by the Canadian Labour Congress in 1985 as the day to recognize the injured and workers who died on the job. It wasn't until 1991 when the federal government of Canada enacted the National Day of Mourning Act, which officially recognized April 28th as the National Day of Mourning. Not a stat holiday, nobody gets paid for it, but it is across the country. And since then, there's literally other countries who have jumped on board and are in their own communities recognizing those workers killed or injured on the job. The next thing is, because, like I said, I started working in the mines in late 1975. I was in the mines for 13 years before I went working for the union. And at that time, I was exposed to this McIntyre powder, the aluminum dust. And when I stood up, when asked who rode the 108, and other of my fellow miners got up with me, I noticed that I was maybe, I'm sorry, but one of the younger ones. So you were exposed, if you were in those years, to the McIntyre powder. And I was out of high school, man, I was in awe at how big this equipment was underground, not thinking anything about the aluminum dust. But it came a time when, I'd go to work, and where they would inject this aluminum dust was in the change room, the dry. And there was no escaping it. You had to, go through that change room. And, over time, you're sitting there, you develop a friendship with the miner next to me, and two seats down, and then all of a sudden, one of them doesn't show up for work one day. And you say, well, what's with Zach? And, well, Zach died of lung cancer. And then, well, what about Bob? Well, Bob died. It seemed like every second day there was a miner, a friend of mine, that wasn't showing up from work because they developed a lung disease caused by aluminum powder, silicosis, or silica dust, radiation, what have you. And then in 1974, the miners had enough. And what they did is they walked off the job. And the issue of this illegal work stoppage, a wildcat strike, was health and safety in the mines. And what put an end to that particular strike was the provincial government establishing a royal commission on health and safety in mines, known as the Ham Commission. Professor Ham went around the province to the mines to hear submissions from employers, workers, unions, what have you, and came up with some recommendations. One of the recommendations was to establish a provincial Health and Safety Act for miners, known as the Occupational Health and Safety Act. That was great. It sounded great. Companies in Elliot Lake started putting into place some of the requirements of that act, which included improving the workplace environment, putting in, sinking the ventilation shaft on Roman Island, those kinds of things, and really improve the environment in underground. The problem became that was a provincial law. And being uranium workers, atomic workers, it didn't apply to us because we were federal workers and we were governed under the Canada Labour Code Part 3, which was far inferior in workers' rights, employers' obligations than it was under the Green Book, the Provincial Occupational Health and Safety Act. So the fight went on, and eventually, some years later, 3, 4, 5 years later, finally, the governments got together and says, okay, the Provincial Act applies to the workers in Elliot Lake. And so, hooray, a big victory. That is, all the credit should go to the workers in these mines that fought for that and got that done. And now there's industrial occupational health and safety. There's an Occupational Health and Safety Act for every industry in the province. Now, the McIntyre powder. I know Janice mentioned about her website, and I urge you all to seek that out and view it. Great stuff. But if you go on YouTube and you search McIntyre powder, the first hit will be a CBC Fifth Estate documentary, about 15 minutes long, about way back then in the late 70s, what that McIntyre powder, why it was in our minds, why we were asked to breathe that in deeply. The day after that aired, because you recall back then, Fifth Estate played on Sunday. On Monday, the access road to Denison Mines was closed once again until the company promised to discontinue the injection of McIntyre powder in the mine dry anywhere. They banned it. And they did. It didn't last long, but it was the grit and, of the workers taking that action, putting on the line, because like I said, it was an illegal strike, but it got done. And then all of a sudden, right across the province, the mines in Kirkland and Timmins, Virginia Town, Red Lake, they stopped the McIntyre powder. I think that miners, like these men, these inductees, and everybody on that wall deserves credit for putting up that fight. And, the motto of the National Day of Mourning is mourn the dead and fight for the living. So let's mourn the dead and continue the fight, Janice and others. And when Janice decides to give it all up, somebody's got to pick up that torch and continue the fight, because they're closing WSIB offices all across the province, making it more difficult for people to get justice for their injuries or their deaths. So I hope I didn't bore anybody, and I didn't want to steal anybody's thunder, but I think that history is incredibly important, because after I left Elliot Lake, I was up in Timmins. After I was in Timmins, I was in Sudbury. After I was in Sudbury, I worked for the provincial government, and I traveled every corner of the province of Ontario. And there was nobody prouder than I was to sit in front of people and tell them that my background, I got all of this stuff from working in Elliot Lake. I couldn't have done it working somewhere else. I won't mention the town because I'll get in doo-doo. Okay, so thanks for indulging me with all of that. Now, Fern. Like I said, I'm the youngest, Fern's youngest brother. But Fern, he was born on November 9, 1943, in a small farming community in Loretteville, Quebec. Fern was the third born in a family of 8, 7 boys, 1 girl. To our dad, Richard, and our mom, Maria Lefebvre Loranger. He was raised in a small mining town called Belterre, Quebec, where our dad, worked as a miner in a gold mine until it closed. In 1959, at the age of 15, the family moved here to Elliot Lake. My dad and 2 of my brothers, my brother Reg, my brother Roger, and my brother Fern, worked as milkman for Stan Farquhar. My eldest brother Emery worked as the accountant at the Algodin Hotel. He's not there no more. In those days, each mine had their own town site, and therefore door-to-door milk delivery was essential to the people living in those town sites. When Elliot Lake experienced his first bust in the mid-60s, my dad moved the family to Sturgeon Falls, but shortly thereafter moved once again to Kitchener, Ontario, in southern Ontario, where Fern worked as a tire builder for Uniroyal Tire Company. After a couple of years at Uniroyal, he went to Quebec to obtain training and certification in the welding trade. In July 1967, he returned to Elliot Lake to meet up with friends, the Casey family, who remained in Elliot Lake. Being told that the mines were hiring tradesmen, Fern went to Denison Mines without hesitation, where he was hired immediately as a welder. He started work immediately, working underground, where there was no shortage of work for a welder. He worked on the heavy equipment, slushing machines, conveyor systems, just to name a few, and finally, at the end of the time at the mine, was a scoop tram bucket rebuilder. And he worked there until the mines closed I got 1992, but I stand to be corrected. All of those years working underground. In 1969, he married Claire Figuillon, a French elementary school teacher. She might have taught some of you. They had 2 children, Mark, a computerized machinist who resides in the Barrie area, and Lynn, as a registered nurse at St. Joseph's Hospital here in Elliot Lake until her retirement. Now resides in Port Perry. Fern and Claire are also blessed with 5 grandchildren. In order, Todd, Jordan, Bryden, twins Dylan and Danielle, and great-grandchild Amaya. When Mark became of age to play minor hockey, Fern became a qualified hockey coach and coached minor hockey locally for 7 years. Fern also laced up the skates himself and played on the Old Timers Hockey League here in Elliot Lake with your dad. I think he's your dad. Oh, so you know him too, eh? After the mines closed, Fern and Claire remained in Elliot Lake. Fern, still yearning to work, returned to work for his first employer, the Farquhars, but this time it was as a welder for Wendell. He worked for Wendell for a few years in decommissioning the mines. Following that job, and since Claire was still teaching, he worked for Foodland as a handyman on an as-needed basis, which was pretty much full-time, but that's the way he would have wanted it. Fern loved the outdoors and equally loved each season. He could be seen on the trails on his snow machine in the winter, in his raspberry garden and rhubarb patch in the spring, on the road sightseeing various destinations in Canada and the US in the summer, and driving the back roads in the fall, taking in all the beautiful colors of the fall leaves. In December, and I'm sure sometime in late November, Fern would put much effort in decorating his home for the Christmas season every year. His house was always one of the top 3 homes judged to be the most beautifully decorated for the Christmas season. It being very important to him, he also took pride in decorating Lynn's house here in Elliot Lake and sometimes some of his closest friends. Unfortunately, the number of years of exposure to the underground environment and the McIntyre powder in the early years, Fern was unable to escape their effects on his health and eventually developed pulmonary fibrosis, which he endured for a number of years. As he lived his life with all the life has to offer, it was most frustrating to him to experience the decline that his lung disease brought to him. As Fern's condition deteriorated, Fern and Claire chose to leave Elliot Lake and relocate to a retirement lodge in Penetanguishene, where Fern became somewhat rejuvenated. As he awoke every morning to look out of his second-floor front window, he saw the activities on Georgian Bay, people fishing from the municipal dock and boats idling their way out of the harbor. Today we honor Fern as a man of grit and heart, determination, and love of life. He was a proud member and supporter of this community, a mentor to local youth, a devoted family man whose legacy remained firmly rooted in the hearts of those who knew him. Fern passed away on December 6, 2024, peacefully in Penetang. Thank you.
Okay, our next inductee is Mr. Robert Olmsted.
I didn't come prepared today, but I just wanted to say thanks to everyone for showing up. It's very hard because it's going to be a year next month, and I'm sorry. Thank you, and thanks, Janice. for everything you do. Okay?
Sorry, I'm going to share a few words on behalf of the family prepared by the son of Robert Olmsted. We are saddened by the loss of Bob last year in Sudbury, but proud of the contributions he made and the love he gave to his family, his work, and those around him. Bob grew up in this area and later made his home in the Sudbury region. He worked in the mining industry, contributing to the history of this community, and was a man who genuinely enjoyed life, known for his laughter, his smile, and the way he connected with people. He was always an optimist, staying strong to the very end, and always thinking of others before himself. Those who knew him and will remember the simple things: his lunch bucket, a good laugh, and the pride he took in his work. Bob was a devoted husband to Hectorine and a proud father, grandfather, and a great-grandfather. Family meant a great deal to him, and he cared deeply for his children, holding them closely in his own way. His legacy lives on through the many lives he touched. Today, his name is placed alongside those already etched into this memorial, individuals remembered by their families, whose work and commitment helped build this community and whose stories continue to live on. And we thank the City of Elliot Lake for this recognition and for including Bob on this memorial wall. Thank you.
And the next inductee is Gaston Séguin, otherwise known as Jim. Unfortunately, he's not here. Do you want to come?
Oh, good man.
And now, if you could please join us in a moment of acknowledgement for these fallen workers with the accompaniment of Kimberly Arnold, singing her original song, In My Memory.
Working deep underground till shift change whistle blows, braving heat, dust and sweat tick. It's pretty. Yeah, sorry, let's just go again. It's too low. That band is temperamental. Working deep underground till shift change whistle blows, braving heat, dust and sweat, tempting fate as they go. A lifetime of mining, it'll steal your breath away. So together we will mark their sacrifice and say, thank you for your service, a debt we can't repay. Working far from loved ones to make a better day. With these hands I would touch your kind weathered face. With these arms I'd give to you my loving embrace. With my arms I'd so tenderly, forever you will live on in my memory. This song is for the miners who never made it home, families whose lives changed when they answered the phone. A lifetime of mining, it'll steal your breath away. So together we will mark their sacrifice and say, thank you for your service, a debt we can't
Thank you so much, Kim, for that beautiful song dedication, and our apologies for the technical difficulties. Thank you once more to each of the families of this year's 11 inductees for sharing their stories and for being here with us today as we honor their loved ones, joining the names of coworkers and friends onto our memorial walls. I would also like to extend my gratitude to our artists and speakers, Linda Alick, Maria Trudeau, and Mary Kay Carhey on behalf of MPP Bill Rosenberg, Janice Martell, Kimberly Arnold, and Mayor Andrew Wannen for their meaningful words today and for their continued work to prevent future workplace tragedies. Thank you to our fire department for being on standby to lower the flag, and to our parks and public works teams for their ongoing care and maintenance of our memorial park. A very special thank you goes out to the Rogers family for their continued support and sponsorship of our Day of Mourning event. The Rogers family, who lost a husband and father, Miklos Kolev, to a workplace tragedy in our uranium mines, along with the 11 families you met today who lost loved ones to occupational disease, remind us of the lasting and far-reaching impact of unsafe working conditions. Suzanne Rogers has kindly sponsored a reception following the ceremony, which we all hope you can join us for. And we also extend our sincere thanks to the team at Elliot Lake Monuments for their ongoing care and craftsmanship. They do both the engraving of our memorial walls and our memorial bricks. Thanks to their extra efforts, in spite of the extended winter, the names of this year's 11 new inductees have already been engraved on the memorial walls, ensuring that their legacies are permanently honored. Finally, thank you to everyone who has joined us today to commemorate this National Day of Mourning. Your presence helps keep these memories alive and strengthens our shared resolve to ensure safer workplaces for all. Thank you. So that concludes our ceremony. Again, thank you all for joining us. I know if some of the families were to stick around, Janice would very much appreciate taking some photos with the photos of your loved ones.